Probably just zooming out and looking across a little bit. You might be thinking, well, how am I going to consider all this kind of information that's being given? Something that's very much a prototype, but something that I think works. The PACER approach, which is something that I've been working on recently, and this might really help you if you're thinking about where do I start. So we've got this acronym PACER, and I'll just step through it. So I'll guide you left to right on the slide that you can see there. So the P of PACER, plan. You do need to plan which psychosocial skills and characteristics that you're wanting to develop within your program. Which ones are they? What might they look like at different ages and stages? What might they look like in competition? What might they look like in training? And building up that view of what these things look like so you can talk about them. You might plan with regards to what the game demands are. So you might have a very sort of technical and tactical curriculum, and you might drive the focus of psychosocial skills based on the type of game demands or sport demands that are in and around that curriculum. But you've got to know what you're going after from a starting point. The A is approach. There's probably two very broad approaches that you can take. One of them, you could take a more traditional curriculum or program approach, where you might for 2, 4, 6 weeks focus on a specific psychosocial skill and characteristic, and then move on to the next one. And that might be an approach that you take. You might also do a more kind of bullseyed or individualized approach and try, a bit like what James did in the previous slide. You might start to like bullseye in on players every so often, so it's what the player needs at that time. Then once you've decided your approach, then really it's about coaching it, and that might be your coach behaviors, that might be your practice designs, the things that you do in your sessions. So example, you might manipulate game conditions. So we might use, for example, overload. So if we're thinking defensively attack, you overload your strikers, or more strikers than defenders. That'll probably increase the success rate for strikers. So maybe more shots, more goals, which is great. But conversely, the defenders are under immense pressure and stress, which might actually kind of attend to or promote some emotional regulation, resilience type traits coming out. You might isolate individuals and bullseye in on people. You might adopt player-led sessions if you want to give autonomy to players and help with their decision making and sharing of information and debating and working out what the best way to approach something is. As a coach, you might use simple praise. If you see a really nice example of a communication or confidence or resilience or something like that, praise it in the moment, and like you would a technical skill or a tactical decision. The environment is the things around the coaching session. So it might be you have a video bank and you're getting players to reflect and review some of their experiences watching videos of maybe players in a first team or an elite performance in a different sport. You might choose to play players in different age groups. If you've got a range of age groups in, for example, a talent development system, you play up, you're going to up the challenge point, you're going to make it more difficult. You might be able to give them some skills like imagery, self-talk, breathing prior to that. You might play them up and increase the challenge point. You might reflect on that afterwards. You might play players out of position. You might sub players on and off at times when they might not want to. It puts them in slightly uncomfortable situations where they're going to have to deal with that, and we can help support, guide them, reflect on those sort of things. We might support player-led warm-ups, for example, or player-led team talks if we want to develop communication. And that I'll put in green, that's really kind of context specific, depends on resource, depends on how many people you've got, you're probably from a range of sports, and it also needs to be developmentally appropriate. So what might be appropriate for a 9-year-old is going to be very different to what's appropriate for a 14-year-old, for example. So those sort of broad suggestions, they are context specific, and they must be developmentally appropriate. Then what you need to do really is review what you're doing, review your session, ask yourself what went well, even better if, and then start to think about, are these activities having an impact? Are they having a positive impact on player psychosocial development? So yeah, the PACER approach is something that we would advocate for you to consider.